I lost everything in a single afternoon. $7 million. My children, my home, my entire life gone. And my wife, she smiled the whole time. If you ever stood in a courtroom and watched your world burn while the person who lit the match stood there grinning, then you know exactly where I am right now. You know the hollow, airless feeling when the judge's gavel comes down and seals your fate. You know what it's like to be buried alive while everyone else just goes about their day. I'm telling you this story because I need you to understand something. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's patient. Sometimes it finds you when you've stopped looking for it. And sometimes it's hidden in the last place you'd ever think to look. Before I go any further, I need you to do something for me. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching this from. I want to know I'm not alone in this. And if this story hits you the way it hit me to live through it, check the description box below. There are more stories like this one. Stories about people who thought they'd lost everything, only to discover they had one card left to play. My name is David. I'm 42 years old, and until 6 months ago, I was living what most people would call the American dream. I had a beautiful wife, Claire, 2 kids, a daughter named Emma who just turned 12 and a son, Jake, who's 9. We lived in a custom-built home in Westchester County, New York. 5 bedrooms, 3 acres of land, a pool that Claire insisted we needed even though we barely used it. I ran a commercial property development company that I'd built from nothing. 15 years of 18-hour days, of missed birthdays and cold dinners, of grinding and hustling until my back ached and my eyes burned. But I did it. I built something. We were worth over $7 million in assets, not inherited wealth, not lottery money, blood, sweat, and sacrifice. And Claire, she worked part-time as a yoga instructor. She drove a Range Rover I paid for. She took the kids to Turks and Caicos every spring while I stayed behind to close deals. She wore designer clothes and got her nails done twice a month and complained that I worked too much. I thought we were happy. Or maybe I just thought we were fine. Maybe I was too busy building the castle to notice that the Queen was planning a coup. It started with small things. Claire became distant. She stopped asking about my day. She started going out more, girls' nights, she said, spin classes that somehow lasted 3 hours. I convinced myself it was nothing. I was paranoid. I was stressed. I was imagining things. Then one night, I came home early. It was a Thursday in March, unseasonably warm. I walked into our bedroom and found her on the phone, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years. The kind of laugh that's intimate, familiar. When she saw me, her face went cold. She hung up without saying goodbye. I asked her who it was. She said it was her sister. I knew she was lying. Her sister lived in Oregon, and they barely spoke. But I didn't push. I was a coward. I didn't want to know. 2 weeks later, she filed for divorce. I'll never forget that morning. I was in my office, reviewing blueprints for a strip mall project in Yonkers, when a process server walked in and handed me an envelope. Claire was suing me for full custody of the kids, the house, and half of everything I built. Her lawyer was a bulldog named Gerald Finch, one of those guys who wears suspenders and smiles like a shark, the type who makes his living destroying men like me. The divorce took 4 months. 4 months of depositions and accusations, and watching my wife turn into someone I didn't recognize. She claimed I was an absentee father, that I prioritized work over family, that I was emotionally unavailable and controlling. She painted me as a villain, and her lawyer made sure the judge saw every brushstroke. The worst part? I couldn't even defend myself, because some of it was true. I had worked too much. I had missed soccer games and school plays. I had been so focused on building a future that I forgot to live in the present. But I love my kids. God, I love them more than anything. And I would have done anything, given up every dollar, every property, every piece of the empire I built just to keep them. The judge didn't care. On a Friday in July, she awarded Claire full custody. She got the house. She got 70% of our liquid assets, nearly $5 million. She got the cars, the furniture, the vacation home in the Berkshires that we bought 2 years ago and visited exactly once. I got weekends with my kids, If Claire agreed, and she got to decide what weekends meant, I sat there in that courtroom, numb, while Claire's lawyer shook her hand and congratulated her. And then, God, I'll never forget this. She turned to me, she looked me dead in the eye, and she smiled. Not a polite smile, not a sad smile, a victorious one. She leaned close as she walked past me and whispered, "You'll suffer for this." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I hope we can co-parent." She wanted me to suffer. I walked out of that courthouse with nothing. My lawyer had cost me another $100,000. My business accounts were frozen pending asset division. I had no home. I had no money. I had no kids. I had nothing. For 2 weeks, I stayed in a motel off the Taconic Parkway. A roach-infested box with cigarette burns in the carpet and a neon sign outside that buzzed all night. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out how I'd ended up here. And then I remember my father's house. My father, Robert, had died 3 years earlier. Lung cancer. He'd been a stubborn, silent man, a lobsterman who spent his whole life in a small coastal town in Maine called Spruce Harbor. We weren't close. He'd never approved of me leaving, of going to college, of chasing money instead of staying on the water like he did. When he died, he left me his house. I'd never visited it. Never even thought about it, really. It was just a line item in his will, gathering dust in a probate file. But now, it was all I had left. So I packed what little I still owned into a duffel bag, got in my truck, and drove north. 6 hours through New York, into Massachusetts, up through New Hampshire, and finally into the rocky, wind-swept coast of Maine. The house was exactly as I remembered it, small, gray, sagging under the weight of decades. Paint peeling, shutters hanging crooked, a dock that stretched out into the water, half rotted and covered in barnacles. I stepped inside, and the smell hit me immediately. Mildew, dust, the ghost of my father's cigarettes. The furniture was still there, covered in sheets. His boots were still by the door. It was like walking into a tomb. But it was mine, and for the first time in months, I had a roof over my head. I spent the first few days just trying to make the place livable. I cleaned. I aired out the rooms. I fixed the plumbing in the upstairs bathroom and patched a hole in the kitchen wall where the drywall had crumbled away. It was mindless work, and I welcomed it. Anything to keep my brain from looping back to Claire's smile, to the gavel, to my kids' faces when I told them I wouldn't be living with them anymore. On the 4th day, I went down into the basement. It was unfinished, just concrete floors, exposed beams, and a rusted boiler that clanked and hissed whenever it kicked on. There were boxes everywhere. Old tools, fishing gear, my father's life packed away and forgotten. I was sweeping near the back wall when I noticed something odd. The boiler was pushed up against a corner, but there was a gap behind it. Not much, maybe a foot, just enough to make me curious. I grabbed a flashlight and squeezed behind it, and that's when I saw it. A safe, small metal, built into the wall. It was old military green, with a manual combination lock that had rusted slightly around the edges. My heart started pounding. I don't know why. Maybe it was the isolation. Maybe it was the desperation. Or maybe some part of me just needed to believe that there was still something left in this world that could surprise me. I tried pulling the safe out, but it was bolted into the concrete. So I stood there, staring at the lock, trying to think. My father had never mentioned a safe, never told me about anything hidden. He wasn't the kind of man who kept secrets, or at least, I didn't think he was. I tried a few random combinations. Nothing. Then, on a whim, I tried my birth year, 1982. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside, there was only one thing. A single piece of paper. A letter, folded neatly, written in my father's slanted, blocky handwriting. I unfolded it, my hand shaking. It read, Asterisk, if you're reading this, they've already found you. Asterisk. I stood there in that basement, holding my father's letter, and I swear to God, the air around me felt different, colder, thicker, like the house itself was holding its breath. I read the line again. Asterisk, If you're reading this, they've already found you. Asterisk. Found me? Who? What the hell was my father talking about? I flipped the paper over. There was more. His handwriting got messier toward the end, like he'd been rushing. Or scared. Asterisk. David, I know we weren't close. I know you thought I was just a stubborn old man who wasted his life on the water. But there are things I never told you. Things I couldn't tell you. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I kept my head down, they'd leave you alone. But if you're holding this letter, then I was wrong. I'm sorry, son. I tried to protect you. But you need to know the truth now. Your mother didn't die in a car accident. She was killed, and the people who killed her are the same ones who've been watching you your whole life. Asterisk. My knees buckled. I sat down hard on the concrete floor, still holding the letter, my pulse hammering in my ears. My mother, dead when I was 6 years old. I barely remembered her. Just flashes. Her voice singing me to sleep, the smell of her perfume, the way she used to braid my hair before school even though I hated it. My father told me she died in a crash on Route 1, just outside of Portland. A drunk driver. Wrong place, wrong time. I'd believed him. Why wouldn't I? But now, I kept reading. Asterisk. Her real name wasn't Sarah Fletcher. It was Sarah Calloway. She came from old money, New England old. Her family owned mills, railroads, shipping companies. Millions of dollars, maybe more, but she didn't want that life. She ran away when she was 19, changed her name, and ended up here in Spruce Harbor. That's where I met her. She was working at the diner on Main Street, pretending to be someone she wasn't. I fell in love with her anyway. We got married. We had you. And for a few years, we were happy. But her family never stopped looking for her. They found her when you were 5. They wanted her to come back, to take her place in the family business. She refused. 6 months later, she was dead. They made it look like an accident. I couldn't prove it, but I knew. I always knew. After she died, I made a deal with them. I'd keep quiet, raise you far away from their world, and they'd leave us alone. They agreed, and they kept their word until now. If you're reading this, it means they've come for you. Maybe through your wife, maybe through your business. I don't know how they'll do it, but they will. They always do. There's a name you need to remember. Calloway. Specifically, Richard Calloway. He's your mother's brother, your uncle. He runs a family now. He's dangerous, David. He's smart and he's patient, and he doesn't lose. If he's found you, it's because he wants something, and he won't stop until he gets it. I'm sorry I kept this from you. I thought I was protecting you, but I see now that I only bought you time. Use it wisely. There's a lawyer in Portland named Helen Marsh. She helped your mother once, years ago. If anyone can help you now, it's her. I love you, son. I'm sorry I didn't say it more when I was alive. Dad, asterisk. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes. Hours. Time stopped meaning anything. My brain was trying to process what I'd just read, but it felt like trying to hold water in my hands. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about my parents, about who I was, it was all a lie. My mother had been an heiress. She'd been murdered. And my father had spent 30 years living in fear, hiding me from people I didn't even know existed. And now they'd found me. I thought about Claire, about the divorce, about how quickly everything had fallen apart, about Gerald Finch, her lawyer, the one with the suspenders and the shark smile, about how he'd known things, details about my business that I'd never shared publicly, about offshore accounts I'd set up years ago for tax purposes, about deals I'd made under the table, nothing illegal, but not exactly clean either, things that shouldn't have been in the public record. How had he known? And then I thought about Claire's smile. Asterisk, you'll suffer for this. Asterisk, what if she'd been working with them? What if the divorce, the custody battle, the whole thing? What if it had all been a setup? I felt sick. My hands were shaking. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to tear the whole house down around me. But I didn't. I just sat there, holding my father's letter, and I let the anger settle into something colder, something sharper. If they wanted to destroy me, fine. But I wasn't going to make it easy. I pulled out my phone and searched for Helen Marsh. There were 3 lawyers by that name in Portland. One was retired. One was a tax attorney. The third specialized in estate litigation and family law. That had to be her. I called the number. It rang 4 times before a woman answered. Her voice was clipped professional. Marsh and Associates. "I need to speak with Helen Marsh," I said. My voice sounded hollow, even to me. "May I ask what this is regarding?" "Tell her it's about Sarah Calloway." There was a pause, a long one. Then, "Hold, please." I waited. The whole music was some bland instrumental version of a song I didn't recognize. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Finally, the music cut off. A new voice came on the line. Older, steady, cautious. "This is Helen Marsh." "Who am I speaking with?" "My name is David Fletcher. Sarah Calloway was my mother." Another pause. Then, "I'm going to need you to come to my office. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Don't use your credit card. Pay cash for everything. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Good. I'll see you then." She hung up. I sat there in the basement, staring at my phone, and for the first time since the gavel fell, I felt something other than despair. I felt like I had a move to make. If you've ever been backed into a corner so tight you couldn't breathe, you know what I'm talking about. You know that moment when you realize you've got 2 choices. Lie down and die, or start swinging. I wasn't ready to die yet. And if they thought they'd already won, they were about to learn something important about me. I don't lose quietly. I spent the rest of the night reading my father's letter over and over, memorizing every word. I pulled up everything I could find online about the Calloway family. There wasn't much, just a few mentions in business journals, some historical records about textile mills in the 1800s, a Wikipedia page that was bare bones and vague. But one name kept appearing: Richard Calloway, CEO of Calloway Holdings, a private investment firm based in Boston. My uncle, the man who, according to my father, had ordered my mother's death. I looked at his picture. He was in his 60s, silver-haired, sharp-featured. He wore expensive suits and smiled like a politician. The kind of man who could shake your hand and ruin your life in the same breath. I wanted to hate him, and I did. But more than that, I wanted to understand him. I wanted to know why. Why my mother? Why me? What did he want? I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just sat at the kitchen table, drinking bad coffee and watching the sun rise over the water, and I made a promise to myself. I was going to find out the truth. And when I did, I was going to make them pay. Every single one of them. Helen Marsh's office was in a converted brownstone in Portland's Old Port District. Brick exterior, ivy climbing up the sides, a brass plaque by the door that read Marsh & Associates, Yesty 1987. It looked respectable, quiet, the kind of place where rich people hid their dirty secrets. I walked in at exactly 9 a.m. The receptionist, a woman in her 20s with bright red lipstick and a skeptical expression, looked me up and down like I'd tracked mud across her floor. I probably looked like hell. I hadn't shaved in days. My clothes smelled like mildew and basement dust. But I didn't care. "David Fletcher," I said. "I have an appointment." She picked up the phone, murmured something I couldn't hear, then nodded toward a hallway. Second door on the right. Helen Marsh's office was exactly what I expected. Dark wood furniture, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a window overlooking the street. She was sitting behind her desk when I walked in, a woman in her early 70s. Silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, wire-rimmed glasses perched on her nose. She looked like someone's grandmother, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. She gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit." I sat. She studied me for a long moment, then leaned back in her chair and folded her hands. "You look like her. Sarah, you have her eyes." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. "I haven't heard that name in 30 years, she continued. "When you called yesterday, I almost didn't believe it. I thought maybe it was some kind of scam. But then you said your name, and I knew." She paused. "So, tell me, why are you here?" I pulled out my father's letter and slid it across the desk. She picked it up, unfolded it, and read it slowly. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. When she finished, she set the letter down and looked at me. Your father was a good man. Stubborn as hell, but good. He loved your mother very much, and he was right, be afraid. Who are they? I asked. My voice came out rougher than I intended. The Callaways. My mother's family. Why did they kill her? Helen sighed. She took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. It's complicated. I've got time. She stood up, walked to the window, and stared out at the street for a moment before speaking. The Callaways are one of the oldest families in New England. They made their fortune in textiles during the Industrial Revolution, then diversified, shipping, real estate, banking, defense contracts. By the 1970s, they were worth hundreds of millions, maybe more. But money like that doesn't stay clean. There were rumors, things I couldn't prove, that they were involved in some very dark business, laundering money for organized crime, bribing politicians. Worse. She turned back to me. Your mother found out. She was only 18, but she wasn't stupid. She stumbled onto something, documents, maybe, or a conversation she wasn't supposed to hear. I don't know exactly what it was, but she knew enough to be dangerous. So she ran, changed her name, disappeared. She came to me for help setting up a new identity. I did what I could, but I warned her, people like the Callaways don't let go. They don't forgive, and they don't forget. And when they found her, I asked. She refused to come back. She told them she'd go public with what she knew if they didn't leave her alone. That was a mistake. They don't respond well to threats. Helen's voice was flat, clinical, but I could hear the anger underneath. They killed her, made it look like an accident. Your father knew, but he couldn't prove it, so he made a deal. He'd keep you away from them, raise you under the radar, and they'd leave you alone. Why? I said, why would they agree to that? Because you were just a child. You didn't know anything. You weren't a threat. As long as your father kept his mouth shut, there was no reason to come after you. She paused. But that's changed now, hasn't it? I thought about Claire, the divorce, the timing of it all. My wife, I said slowly, she took everything. The house, the money, the kids. Her lawyer knew things he shouldn't have known. Is that them? Helen nodded. Almost certainly. The Callaways have a pattern. They don't just destroy people. They dismantle them, piece by piece. They isolate you, take away your resources, your support system, your credibility. And then when you're at your weakest, they move in for the kill. But why? Why now? I haven't done anything. I didn't even know they existed until yesterday. Helen sat back down. That's the question, isn't it? If I had to guess, I'd say it's about control. The Callaways are control freaks. They don't like loose ends. And you, David, are a loose end. You're Sarah's son. You're a potential heir to the family fortune, whether you want to be or not. And more importantly, you're a risk. What if you dig into your mother's death? What if you find proof? What if you go public? I don't want their money, I said. I just want my life back. It doesn't matter what you want. It never did. Helen's voice was cold. Final. To them, you're a problem. And they solve problems. I sat there, letting it all sink in. My whole life had been a lie. My wife had been a pawn, or worse, a willing participant. My mother had been murdered. And now, the same people who killed her were coming for me. I felt that familiar rage building in my chest again, the kind that makes your vision go red. But I forced it down. I couldn't afford to lose control. Not now. What do I do? I asked. Helen leaned forward. You have two options. Option one, you disappear. Change your name. Leave the country. Start over somewhere they can't find you. It's not a guarantee, but it's your best shot at staying alive. And option two, she smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. You fight back. You dig into their business. You find leverage. You make yourself too dangerous to kill. But I'll warn you, that path is ugly. It's bloody. and there's a very good chance you don't survive it. I didn't hesitate. Option 2. Helen studied me for a long moment, then nodded. I thought you'd say that. You're your mother's son, after all. She opened a drawer and pulled out a thick file. This is everything I still have on the Callaways. Financial records, corporate filings, old news clippings. It's not much, but it's a start. There's also a contact list. People who've crossed them before and live to tell about it. Some of them might be willing to help. Most won't. She slid the file across the desk. I opened it. Pages and pages of names, numbers, documents. It looked like chaos. Where do I even start? I asked. With your wife? Helen said. If she's working with them, she knows things. Find out what she knows. And be careful. If they realize you're onto them, they'll accelerate their timeline. You'll be dead before you even see them coming. I stood up. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Helen said. You might not make it out of this alive. And even if you do, you won't be the same person when it's over. Revenge has a cost, David. Make sure you're willing to pay it. I walked out of that office with the file tucked under my arm, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had a purpose. They'd taken everything from me. My wife, my kids, my money, my peace. Now, I was going to take something from them. If you're still with me, drop a comment and let me know, because this story is about to get darker. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories about people who refuse to stay down, check the description box below. I drove back to Spruce Harbor with Helen's file on the passenger seat and a plan forming in my head. It wasn't a good plan. It wasn't even a smart plan, but it was all I had. First, I needed to know if Claire was involved, really involved, or if she was just another pawn like me. I waited until nightfall, then drove back down to Westchester. I parked 2 blocks away from what used to be my house and walked the rest of the way. The lights were on inside. I could see Claire moving around in the kitchen through the window. My kids were probably upstairs, getting ready for bed. My chest ached just looking at the place. But I couldn't afford to be sentimental. Not now. I circled around the back and slipped into the yard. There was a small office on the first floor, Claire's space. She'd redecorated it after I moved out, but I knew she kept her laptop in there. If there was evidence, it would be on that computer. The window was unlocked. Careless. Or maybe she didn't think I'd ever come back. I climbed inside, quiet as I could, and made my way to the desk. The laptop was there, closed. I opened it. Password protected, of course. But I knew Claire's passwords. She used the same one for everything. Emma's birthday plus the number 7. I typed it in. It worked. I pulled up her email and started scrolling. Most of it was mundane, yoga studio schedules, school newsletters, spam. But then I found a folder labeled legal. I clicked it open, and there it was. Emails between Claire and Gerald Finch. Dozens of them. But that wasn't the worst part. There were also emails between Finch and someone named R. Calloway, my uncle. I read through them, my stomach twisting with every line. They'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. Richard Calloway had approached Claire a year ago, right around the time our marriage started falling apart. He'd offered her money, a lot of money, enough to make her comfortable for the rest of her life. All she had to do was file for divorce, take me for everything I had, and make sure I ended up isolated and broke. She'd said yes. There were detailed instructions, how to manipulate the custody hearings, what to say to the judge, which of my business deals to dig into. They choreographed the whole thing, and Claire had followed the script perfectly. But why? The emails didn't say. Richard Calloway's messages were vague, cryptic. Asterisk keep him off balance. Make sure he has nowhere to turn. We'll handle the rest. Asterisk. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Then I wiped the browser history, closed the laptop, and climbed back out the window. I sat in my truck, shaking, staring at the pictures on my phone. I wanted to scream. I wanted to go back inside and confront her, but that would tip them off. And I couldn't afford that. Not yet. So I drove back to Maine, and I started making calls. Helen had given me a list of people who'd tangled with the Callaways and survived. Most of them wouldn't talk to me. A few hung up as soon as I mentioned the name. But one of them, a former investigative journalist named Tom Brennan, agreed to meet me. We met at a diner in Augusta 2 days later. Tom was in his 60s, grizzled, with the look of a man who'd seen too much and drunk too much and stopped caring about either. He ordered black coffee and a slice of pie and didn't say a word until a waitress left. "So," he said finally, "you're Sarah's kid. You knew my mother?" I knew of her. I was working on a story about the Callaways back in the 90s. Political corruption, money laundering, the usual. I got close, too close. They buried the story. Got my editor fired. Got me blacklisted. I haven't worked in journalism since. He took a bite of pie. "Your mother reached out to me once. Said she had information that could bring them down. But before we could meet, she was dead. Do you think they killed her?" "I know they did. Can't prove it, but I know." He looked at me. "You planning to go after them?" "Yes." Tom laughed. It was a bitter, hollow sound. "You got a death wish, kid?" "Maybe, but I'm tired of running, and I'm tired of losing." He studied me for a long moment, then pulled a manila envelope out of his jacket and slid it across the table. "This is everything I still have from my investigation. Bank records, shell companies, names of politicians they bought. It's not enough to take them down, but it's a start. You want my advice? Go public. Get everything out in the open. The only way to beat people like the Callaways is to drag them into the light. What if that's not enough?" Tom shrugged. "Then you're dead. But at least you'll take a few of them with you." I took the envelope. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Just don't waste it." He stood up, tossed a 20 on the table, and walked out without another word. I spent the next 3 weeks building my case. I compiled everything. Helen's files, Tom's documents, the emails I pulled from Claire's laptop. I cross-referenced names, traced money, connected dots. And slowly, a picture started to form. Richard Callaway wasn't just running a private investment firm. He was running a criminal empire, money laundering for drug cartels, offshore accounts in the Caymans, bribery, extortion, and at the center of it all, a network of shell companies that funneled dirty money into clean investments. It was brilliant, and it was illegal as hell. But I needed more. I needed proof that would hold up in court. And I needed a way to make sure it got out even if they killed me. That's when I thought of Emma, my daughter, 12 years old, smart as hell. She had her own laptop. Claire had bought it for her last Christmas. And Emma, being 12, probably hadn't changed the default passwords. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was dragging my kid into something dangerous. But I was out of options. I called Emma. It was a Saturday afternoon. Claire was out. I could hear cartoons in the background. "Dad." Emma sounded surprised. Happy. It broke my heart. "Hey, sweetheart. How are you?" "I'm good. I miss you." "I miss you too, baby. Listen, I need your help with something. Can you do me a favor?" "Sure. I need you to send me a file from your mom's computer. It's in her office. Can you do that?" There was a pause. "Am I allowed to?" "It's okay. I promise. I just need to see something. It's important." Another pause. Longer this time. Then, "Okay. Thank you, sweetheart. I'll text you the instructions. And Emma, don't tell your mom, okay? It's a surprise." "Okay, Dad." I hated myself for lying to her, but I didn't have a choice. Emma sent me the file 2 hours later. It was a financial spreadsheet, detailed records of payments Richard Callaway had made to Claire, to Gerald Finch, and a half a dozen other people. Dates, amounts, account numbers, everything I needed. I uploaded everything to a secure server. Then I sent copies to 3 journalists, 2 federal agencies, and a lawyer I'd found through Tom who specialized in whistleblower cases. And then I waited. It took 4 days. 4 days of sitting in my father's house, staring at my phone, wondering if I'd just signed my own death warrant. Then the story broke. Boston Globe. Callaway Holdings under federal investigation for money laundering. New York Times. Wealthy New England family tied to political corruption scandal. Wall Street Journal. Richard Callaway arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. They came for him at 6 a.m. Federal agents. They raided his office, froze his accounts, arrested him in front of his employees. The news footage showed him in handcuffs, his face pale, his expression shocked. He'd never seen it coming. Claire tried to call me. I didn't answer. Her lawyer sent me an email threatening legal action. I forwarded it to the FBI. Within a week, the custody arrangement was overturned. Claire was under investigation for conspiracy. Emma and Jake came to stay with me in Maine. They were confused, scared, but they were mine. Richard Callaway is awaiting trial. If convicted, he's looking at 20 years minimum. Claire's cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. She'll probably do a few years. Gerald Finch lost his law license. And me? I'm sitting here in my father's house, watching the sun set over the water and trying to figure out what comes next. I thought revenge would feel better than this. I thought there'd be some moment of triumph, some sense of closure. But all I feel is tired and empty and sad. I got my kids back. That's what matters. Emma's adjusting. She's resilient, always has been. Jake still has nightmares sometimes. He asks me why his mom isn't here. I don't know what to tell him. How do you explain to a 9-year-old that his mother sold out his father for money? That she chose greed over her family? So I just hold him. I tell him it's going to be okay. And I hope to God that's true. The thing about revenge is that it costs you something. Helen was right about that. I look in the mirror now, and I don't recognize the person staring back. I'm harder, colder, more cynical. I see threats everywhere. I question everyone's motives. I can't sleep without checking the locks on the doors 3 times. I can't relax without looking over my shoulder. The Callaways took everything from me. And even though I took something back, even though I won, I still lost. Because you can't undo what's been done. You can't unbreak what's been shattered. You can't go back to the person you were before you knew the truth. Sometimes I think about my mother, Sarah, the woman I barely remember. I wonder what she would think of all this. Would she be proud? Would she tell me I did the right thing? Or would she tell me I should have just run? That revenge wasn't worth the cost? I'll never know. But I do know this. I'm still here. My kids are still here. And the people who try to destroy us are paying for what they did. That has to be enough. I've started rebuilding. Not the business. I don't have a heart for that anymore. But I'm fixing up this house. Making it a home. Emma wants to paint her room blue. Jake wants bunk beds, even though he doesn't have anyone to share them with. I'm teaching him to fish off the dock, the way my father taught me. He's terrible at it, but he laughs when the line gets tangled, and that sound, that pure, unself-conscious joy, it's the best thing I've heard in months. I got a letter from Helen last week. She's retiring, closing her practice. She said she's glad I made it out alive, and she hopes I find peace. She also said something else, something I keep turning over my mind. She said, "Your mother didn't run because she was afraid. She ran because she wanted something better. She wanted freedom. She wanted love. She wanted a life that was hers, not theirs. You have that now, David. Don't waste it." I won't. I think about Claire sometimes, about the woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved or thought I loved. I wonder if any of it was real. The early years, the laughter, the quiet moments. Or was she always just playing a part, waiting for the right offer to cash out? I'll never know that either. And I'm learning to be okay with that. Because the truth is, some questions don't have answers. Some betrayals can't be explained. And some people are just broken in ways you can't fix. All you can do is protect yourself, protect the people you love, and build something new from the wreckage. That's what I'm doing now. Building. Last week, I took Emma and Jake to the beach. It was cold. May and October always is. But the sun was out, and the water was that impossible shade of blue-gray that makes you feel small in the best way. Jake ran ahead, chasing seagulls. Emma walked beside me, quiet, thoughtful. "Dad," she said after a while. "Yes, sweetheart. Are we going to be okay?" I looked down at her. My daughter. 12 years old, and already carrying more weight than any kid should have to. She had my mother's eyes, Sarah's eyes, brave and sad and hopeful all at once. Yeah, I said, we're going to be okay. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. Because here's the thing about revenge. It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't heal the wounds or erase the pain. But sometimes it gives you enough space to breathe, enough room to rebuild, enough time to remember who you were before they try to break you. And sometimes that's enough. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what the Callaways will come after me again once Richard gets out, assuming he ever does. I don't know if Claire will try to get custody back. I don't know if I'll ever stop looking over my shoulder or if I'll ever trust anyone the way I used to, but I know I'm not the man I was 6 months ago. That man was naive, soft. He thought the world was fair, that hard work paid off, that love was enough. This man knows better. This man knows that the world is brutal and unfair, and that sometimes the only way to survive is to fight back, to be ruthless, to be willing to do whatever it takes to protect what's yours. And that's exactly what I did. If you've stuck with me this far, thank you. I know this is an easy story to hear. It's not a feel-good tale with a neat, happy ending. It's messy and complicated and real. But that's life, isn't it? It's never as simple as we want it to be. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever felt backed into a corner, if you've ever had to fight for what's yours, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me your story. Because we're all fighting battles that nobody else can see. And sometimes, knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories about people who refused to stay down, who clawed their way back from nothing, who turned their pain into power, check the description box below. There are more stories there. Stories that will make you think. Stories that will make you feel. Stories that will remind you that no matter how dark things get, there's always a way forward. I'm sitting here now in my father's house, my house, watching the wave roll in. Emma's upstairs doing homework. Jake's building something with Legos on the living room floor. The house smells like the chili I'm making for dinner. It's not much, but it's ours. And for now, that's everything. My name is David Fletcher. I lost $7 million, my home, and my children in a courtroom. I discovered that my wife had been paid to destroy me. I learned that my mother was murdered and that I'd been living a lie my entire life. I found a letter in my dead father's basement that changed everything. And I survived. Not unscathed, not unchanged, but alive. And if I can do it, so can you. Remember that. Whatever you're going through right now, whatever corner you've been backed into, whatever betrayal you're carrying, you can survive it. You can fight back. You can rebuild. It won't be easy. It won't be clean. And it won't be the life you planned. But it will be yours. And that's the only revenge that really matters. I'm going to check on dinner now. But before I go, one more thing. Check the description box below. There are more stories like this one waiting for you. Stories about survival. Stories about revenge. Stories about people who refuse to let the world break them. Because we all need to know we're not alone in this fight. Take care of yourselves out there. And remember, they can take everything from you. Your money, your home, your reputation. But they can't take who you are. Not unless you let them. Don't let them.